Hi everyone, I'm here in Studio A with our first panel of AI to Peace Live, Ethics in AI. Please allow me to introduce our wonderful panellists. Fran is the co-founder of the Interparliamentary Forum on Emerging Technologies. Dr. Kenzo Fujisu, a visiting professor at the University of Tokyo. And Neema Lugangira is a member of the Tanzanian government and the founding chair of African Parliamentary Network on Internet Governance. Welcome everyone. I'm so excited about this conversation. Thank you. Fran, could you tell us about your company, Lodestone, why it was founded, and tell us about the work that you do?
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much. And it's great to be here and great to be part of this panel today. So Lodestone is a strategy and communications consultancy. We're a B Corp, which means we're part of the kind of community of businesses who are committed to high standards of operations on ethics and on sustainability as well. And together we work to advise lots of different organizations on tech, and also we advise the Parliamentary Internet Technology and Communications Forum, which is quite a mouthful, but which is a great organization. And it's actually through that I began working with the Interparliamentary Forum on Emerging Technologies, which brings together legislators from all around the world to discuss emerging issues in technology, including AI. And it's a great forum to get discussion going and to really kind of unpick issues around AI.
Brilliant. Thank you, Fran. Kenzo, please could you tell us about your role in the Japanese legislature and academia, and why AI is important to you in relation to your work?
Yeah, so I'd like my self-introduction. So I'm Kenzo Fujisue. So I have an experience of a parliamentarian at the Senate of Japan for 18 years, from 2004 to 2022. And I have experience at working for Ministry of Trade and Industry as a government official. And I was a state minister of internal affairs and communication. And I started AI guideline policy at Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communication. Because AI is a very key issue, key technology to create a new industry for Japan, we think. And we are launched our AI guideline in 2019, and we are researching on AI value in 2020. So I want to make a new ethic guideline and regulation on AI to change society and make new industry using AI innovation. Thank you.
Thank you. And we really enjoyed having you as part of our network because the values around, are really common. So we're really grateful for you for participating in this as well. Neema, welcome. You're a member of Parliament in Tanzania and the founder of the African Parliamentary Network on Internet Governance. I mean, for me personally, to have Africa now engaged in this is just brilliant. Tell us why you founded the network and about the work that you do.
Thank you. So as you introduced me, I'm Neema Lugangira, a member of Parliament from Tanzania, and it's very great to be here. I'm grateful. Thank you. So as a member of Parliament, I came to realize that there is a big gap between ourselves as African parliamentarians being engaged on issues related to emerging technologies, digital tech, etc. Oftentimes, these conversations are taking place in the exclusion of us as legislators, whilst at the end of the day, we are the ones who have the mandate to create the enabling environment for the sectors to thrive. But at the same time, making sure that these different kinds of emerging technologies are safe to use and are not, detrimental in any aspect. So in 2021, I had the opportunity to attend the United Nations Internet Governance Forum in Poland. And whilst there, it's when it hit me that so much of the conversations happening in the global north have a huge impact on us in the global south. And as parliamentarians, we need to be part of this discussion. And that is when I started up the initiative of saying, can we set up a parliamentary network on internet governance for Africa? Because under the UN IGF system, there's a very strong network covering the youth, very strong network covering civil society, but not the same for covering members of parliament. And I'm grateful for the United Nations Internet Governance Forum Secretariat, African Union, UNECA, the African IGF, who together, they were able to give me support. And last year in June 2022, we launched the African Parliamentary Network on Internet Governance, APNIC, which currently has about 34 members of parliament from 24 African countries. And the aim of that is to strengthen our role as African parliamentarians towards digital development in Africa. So very quickly, some of the things that we've already highlighted is the fact that, one, ourselves as parliamentarians require capacity building in these digital tech, emerging technology, and in innovation, because for so long we've been excluded in these discussions. But two, we've also identified some key topics that we feel that as parliamentarians, we can also play a very key role. So just very quickly, the first one is thinking about, when I mention about capacity building, is building our capacity building as African parliamentarians into things of like digital and geopolitics, digital economy, issues of digital taxation, legislation for open and unfragmented internet. You know, in Africa, we have the Africa Union Digital Transformation Strategy. For Africa, we have the Africa Union Data Protection Policy. But how can we make sure that we also look at things of digital rights? And as parliamentarians, how can we look at things of disinformation, misinformation, internet shutdowns, the impact that the digital sphere has on democracy, the issue of online abuse on women in politics, and now, of course, with artificial intelligence. What is the impact, both positive and negative, of artificial intelligence towards democracy? And we feel that as parliamentarians, we are best placed to advocate these agendas because, one, we need the internet for our own work. We need the internet for ourselves to be able to communicate with our constituency, to report back with our constituency. But more so, we need to ensure that we amplify and elevate the voices from the global south to the global north discussions that have a direct impact on us in the global south. And just to sum up, in this year's UN IGF is actually happening in Japan. And the African Parliamentary Network on Internet Governance, we have decided that we're going to launch on day 0 the Africa Digital Democracy Summit, which is going to be a flagship of our network, because we believe as parliamentarians, we need to be at the forefront of digital democracy. And this includes emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence. Thank you.
Nima, that list you've just given gives me so much hope. And we are, from the Interparliamentary Forum that I work with, we are thrilled to have you as part of that, because we've been trying to make sure that the Global South is pulled into these conversations as much as possible. So that's just amazing. Thank you. Fran, for those who don't know, could you talk to us? Let's talk about kind of the issue of ethics and AI. What is the problem? What do we have to fear? It's just data and algorithms, right? Or do we have... I'm being controversial.
I wish. And I guess one of the benefits of what we do working in the Interparliamentary Forum on emerging tech is just that we get to hear so many different perspectives from around the world, so many different kind of the things that different people, different legislators from different areas really, really care about or are really, really worried about. And it would be hard to summarize all of them here, but I guess 3 I would pick out are around bias first, so concerns around whether AI technologies can exacerbate bias, particularly if they're put together in a particular way. Secondly, around transparency, around the algorithms, how they're put together, and also the data sets that the training is based on. And then thirdly, just around the potential for negative impacts on human rights and how that can play out. But as I summarize those 3, I'm just conscious that every time we hear from legislators from all the different countries that we work with, people bring up different issues that are coming up in different places, which I think is why it's so important to make sure that we've got as many voices in the room as possible.
Yeah, thank you, Fran. I mean, that's absolutely the case, isn't it? That it's only by our awareness around these issues that they can then be built into the product development and hopefully be addressed. But there's significant potential for AI, maybe. Let's hear about the impact that AI can have on humanity's survival. So, Kenzo, what impact do you think will AI play in our survival?
Okay, so I think AI revolution. So I think knowledge revolution. So this is a very big revolution of human beings. So such as agriculture revolution and industrial revolution. And I think impact AI to survive. So we are already summarized. So how to control AI. So 10 principles. So including fairness, transparency, and appropriate learning, and so on. So in my opinion, AI is most, I think, infrastructure will be an infrastructure of a society and life. Now, digital technology become a part of people's lives. More than half of the world's population can access to internet, and spend an average 6.4 hours a day to using online. So digital technology, including AI, is inseparable from us. So, but I think AI is a double-edged technology. So if bad people use AI, so this make a chaos. However, so if good people using AI, it does make a very good, better world, society, I think. So innovation of AI is very important for me because AI will make a new industry, new business. So and to improve productivity of laborers. Maybe labor should be shift from old work to new work, learning new technology. So this is a very big hurdle, change our society and the labor market. However, we should try to change our labor system and the education system, I think. And I can add one more message. So this year, G7 summit will be held in Tokyo. In Japan, Hiroshima. So Japanese government now very focusing on AI, policy integration, harmonization of G7 countries. So this is a very good opportunity. One harmonization of AI ethics and AI regulation. So with among G7 countries, and in the future, so invite African countries to our one standard of AI ethics and AI regulation. So anyway, so AI can change our society, I hope. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think that was an invitation for Nima to go over to Hiroshima next time. But that's brilliant. Do you think, just
Yes.
quickly, do you think that Japan sees it more as an opportunity than a risk? Or is it balanced?
Frankly speaking, so Japanese government and the Japanese people, we have a hope, just a hope, not risk. So because now we are thinking AI is a very good opportunity to make a new business, new industry. So maybe, frankly speaking, mindset of related to AI is a little different from European countries people, I think. So Japanese people, maybe East Asian people, have a very big, huge hope.
Excellent.
For AI, I think.
Thank you. And Nima, from from where I sit and look, I fear that the AI that is currently being developed is based on data that's been generated by people that are on the internet, and that's mainly that sits within the global north. Do you think, and do you see hope in relation to AI and helping us survive, particularly, as someone who sits in Africa and as an African parliamentarian?
Thank you. I totally I appreciate that you started this off on the issue of data, and definitely artificial intelligence operates towards data generated. And as you rightly said, most of this data is being stored in the global north. And similarly, us in the global south, particularly in Africa, we're yet to have the relevant legislative framework across the board of technology, just the existing technology, not to mention emerging technology. Right now, not all African countries have data protection acts. Not all countries have even digital economy acts or policies in place. We still don't have a proper framework towards the issue of digital taxation. But the biggest question of artificial intelligence is we sit somewhat at a disadvantage point because most of this data is not stored by ourselves. Yet a lot of this data that is being generated, global north tech, multi-tech companies are generating income from. Yet we don't get a piece of that income or a piece of that taxation. And one of the things ourselves as the African Parliamentary Network on Internet Governance, we feel that through such engagements, if we get the opportunity to liaise with our counterparts, our colleagues, our parliamentarians from the global north, we can then inform them so that whenever they're making deliberations and whenever they're making laws that are relevant for their space, they can ensure that these multi-tech companies will have the similar behavior even outside the sphere. If we take, for example, the issue of data protection, we know the EU has a very strong data protection legislation in place. Similarly, the US, UK, Japan, etc. But the same multi-tech companies, the way in which they would operate in the EU is totally, they throw everything off the door when they come to Africa. Why? They're taking advantage of the fact that we don't yet have a strong regulatory base. And I think that our colleagues in the global north have that responsibility to make sure if this company is from the EU, if this company is from the US, they should all work in the same manner. That's number one. But number two, very quickly, all of this data that is being collected and stored in the global north, if we want to access it, there's a price tag on it. So how can we make sure that global south countries will have access to this data that has been generated for free and collected for free from Africa? So those are conversations that we need to add. But being a female legislator, I also have to bring up the issue of the existing gender gaps. There are gender gaps across the board, across all sectors, and the digital sector is no different. But now the risk of artificial intelligence is because it is based on existing data. It can also pave way or amplify or widen the issue of gender gap. I can just give a very quick example that I heard at the WSIS Forum in 2023, that right now, if you take a female name, let's say Grace Williams, and you put it on, and you search on the internet about maybe Grace Williams, characteristics of Grace Williams, CEO of an organization or something, the AI will give you features that are somewhat acceptable or relevant for females. But the minute you change that name to John Smith, for example, it automatically shifts. And the type of careers, for example, that will be the AI will bring forward for John Smith will be those of managerial and things like that. While the ones that will be brought forward for Grace will be the ones of secretary, receptionist. So there's already a risk of artificial intelligence in that space, and we have to address it because unfortunately, it's only using the existing data. That is why we feel that as African parliamentarians, we can bring we can bring to light such dynamics, which perhaps our colleagues from the global north may not think of, or may think of as not as a big of issue. And just to conclude, there is the issue of digital literacy and skills. If we're truly going to benefit from artificial intelligence, not only the people who are supposed to use it need to have the relevant digital literacy and skills, but even government officials need to be capacitated. Judiciary needs to be capacitated. Parliamentarians need to be capacitated. And we need to truthfully understand what is the best way to legislate artificial intelligence use, because at the end of the day, as Kenzo mentioned, it needs to be safe use. Yeah. Because if it's left unmanaged and ungoverned, the risks are high. Thank you.
I mean, we take the position that it's a bit like regulating electricity. Nima, you raise a really interesting point, and there's a wonderful UNESCO video on how biased is the algorithm. And we did a search on what does a professor look like, and we were given images of males with complex equations mainly. But the female professors had like 3 + 3 = 6 in the background. So if anyone wants to look that up, it's available on YouTube. But if we move on, I'm sure there is hope there from what Nima was saying. We can sort this out. Fran, finally, for the individuals who are watching, what can they do to make sure that AI promotes the protection of people on our shared planet? We've just had some great examples of the issues that Nima is facing in Africa, and actually talks around government and kind of people having access to services and judiciary are common, in the UK where we sit. So there are issues for everyone, but where do you think, what can we do to make sure that it promotes the protection of people in our shared planet?
I think that's a really good question, and it's hard to think about it on an individual basis, because often as individuals, I feel like we can feel quite disempowered or concerned, particularly if you are in a position where, say, your job's being wiped out by AI, or you're unsure about what's going to happen next. But as individuals, I guess I'd pick out 3 things, and I'd say I'm saying them as an individual rather than as someone from IFET. So the first one would be just make your voice heard. If you're concerned about how something's being handled in your country, make sure the government knows, make sure they're doing something, and definitely take this opportunity to have your say, because this is the biggest paradigm shift we've had in our lifetime, so definitely worth doing that. And then secondly, I would recommend or encourage people to think about calling on their governments to fully implement the UNESCO's recommendation on the ethics of AI, which a huge amount of work went into and a huge number of countries have signed up to, but actually implementing it into law and making sure that it flows through regulation and it's all kind of tied up within different countries takes a lot of work. And if that happens, I do believe it would be a very positive step forward, and it's a tangible thing that can be done and something that you can call on governments to do if you believe it would be a good thing. And then I guess the third thing is, I'm really interested in alignment researchers, so the people who have the jobs where they're looking at making sure that big AI systems have the same goals as humanities goals. And I know it's really hard to define what humanities goals are, but those researchers are in
Sustainable Development Goals.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's a huge shortage of those researchers. I believe not enough investment is going into them. I know the FT recently ran a piece in the Financial Times, I think it was by Ian Hogarth, where he was highlighting that issue as well. But I think either go and retrain as one, or kind of encourage there to be more investment in them too, because I do believe they'll play a pivotal role and they're really important. So yeah, that's only 3, but I'm sure there's loads more.
Well, let's offer the same question to Kenzo. Thank you. What's your view on what people can do to make sure AI promotes the protection of people on our shared planet?
Yeah, so I think protection is very important. Data protection and privacy protection and many protection. So we should make a regulation. However, so protect the people, we should make innovation. So maybe AI make a positive contribution to increase productivity. So, but however, so as Nima said, unfair distribution will occur by gender, by education level, by occupation, and so on. And maybe as many, the possibility of a worker are losing a job in the short time. However, so our government and we are make a new learning system adapting to AI society, AI business, I think. So anyway, so I think to protect people and make growth, development life is we should make a balance. I think this is very important. And additionally, I think protect data. We are now discussing about data center, location of data center. So location data center means which country have data of people. So now in Japan, we are short of data center. So now other countries have Japanese people's data. So this is a big problem for our Japanese people to protect not only AI, but also our cyber system, I think.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
We call it data sovereignty over here for what it's worth. I mean, and Nima, you were talking about the importance of data protection previously, but what are your thoughts? I mean, the conversation before with the youth envoy was talking about not tech for tech's sake. Do you think there are other things that people can do to, make sure that AI promotes the protection of people in the shared planet? Because I know we've just been given a great list by both of our other panelists, so I'm giving you a hard job here. But what are your thoughts? Because we're in a different position in the global north and global south.
Thank you. I think I think very quickly, first of all, I agree with everything that my colleagues mentioned. But just to add on, I could quickly add maybe three main issues. The first one is making sure that every conversation that happens in the global south that has an impact, globally, including every conversation or decision-making events that are happening in the global north should always have inclusion of the voices of the global south. And this means that, strategically and purposefully with intent, be it CSOs, be it government, be it legislators, they should make efforts to engage, liaise, and get opinions from their colleagues and counterparts from the global south. Number two, it's very important for organizations, especially international donor organizations, donor countries, to have funding packages for capacity building. It's very important to have capacity building, artificial capacity building for, the three arms of government officials themselves, judiciary, and legislators, because these three are key towards making sure that either artificial intelligence can be safe to use and the people can be protected, and we can take advantage of the big opportunities and the positivity of artificial intelligence. But if these three groups are left behind and there is no funding for their capacity building, then unfortunately we're setting up some parts of the world to be more disadvantaged than others. Third is, we've set up the African Parliamentary Network on Internet Governance. Currently, as I said earlier, we are about 34 members of parliament from 24 plus African countries, and we've come from different sectors. A deliberate decision that we made is that the African Parliamentary Network on Internet Governance will be made up of members of parliament coming from cross-sectoral parliamentary committees. So this is my closing mark. We cannot continue to advocate and work on the digital emerging tech as a silo. We have to realize that ICT is multi-sectoral, emerging technology is multi-sectoral, and it has an impact across sectors. Therefore, even stakeholders who need to be engaged should be cross-sectoral. Because believe it or not, artificial intelligence also has a potential positive impact on agriculture. Yeah. So if you're speaking just on yourselves as tech, leaving out agriculture, we're not going to get that win-win situation. Thank you so much for
Nima,
giving me this opportunity to be here today. Thank you.
I absolutely agree with you there. And then, if you're a young person looking to go into the world of AI, actually we have to encourage as diverse a group as possible to get involved, because that's what's going to improve the AI that's currently available. For the individual who's just watched this today, what do you think, Fran, on kind of where are good starting points around finding out more about AI and their future? I know UNESCO has tremendous kind of resources, so does the OECD. But are there any other areas you'd recommend? Websites, podcasts, books? I know I put you on the spot here.
Well, I definitely recommend looking at the Turing Institute and seeing the work that they're doing. Some of the research is really, really interesting. But also just look at the jobs that are out there, because so many of them are in emerging areas or really interesting areas where they haven't been fully worked out yet. So when people write the job role description, it's not like they've written them before. And there's scope to kind of define what happens in those roles and play an active part. So I'd say definitely do that, and then read around it as much as possible. I'd definitely recommend the Financial Times at the moment. Has some really good reporting on AI too as background. But yeah.
Yeah, so there's some really interesting suggestions, and I like the one about the job roles, because it definitely gives you a sense of what's coming through and why people might want to get involved. From our own perspective, and from some of the stuff that I've been doing, I know that Mozilla Foundation does some really interesting pieces around, particularly around the Global South and some of the issues that are being faced there as well. So for anyone to get involved, but also I think kind of those that are reaching out to others that are working on this in this field as well, and asking them, engaging at conferences and online seminars, because that's the beauty of now what's happened. We've moved online so much and it's really worked. So one last question, please. If you could say one thing to a young person who wants to go into the world of AI, what would it be? Now
I would say protect humanity, but I think that would be my one major thing.
Nice.
But
Kenzo, Nima, did you catch the question? We've got kind of a couple of minutes left to wrap up. If you're going to say one thing to a young person who wants to go in the world of AI, what would it be? Inspiration, please.
Yeah, so I hope a younger person should make a harmonization AI regulation and ethics all over the world, including China and Russia. Thank you.
Thank you.
For me, very quickly, what I can say is that I would recommend to the young person that if you're engaging in artificial intelligence, to look at it from a multi-sectoral perspective, try and think of how can AI be a solution for governments towards their plans, towards their budgeting, where should their money go, towards the agricultural sector, and other sectors, but also how can AI be used to tackle things like gender-based violence and things like that. So I think to kind of link the social aspects with the tech aspects. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all.
And of course, not forgetting working with legislators.
Absolutely.
Obviously.
Yeah, that brilliant. Thank you all. I think that's it, isn't it? It's about making AI work for us, not us work for the AI, which is what we're at risk of doing. Look, I hope you've enjoyed this panel discussion. Thank you all to my wonderful panelists, and thanks for watching.